Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Catherine Gascon, perinatal consultant for the Champlain Maternal Newborn Regional Program, or what we often refer to as CMNRP. CMNRP is a regional program whose goal is to improve perinatal and newborn care in Ontario Health East. Our extended network include representatives from hospitals, midwifery practice groups, public health units, community health center, birth center, and other community agencies that provide perinatal and newborn services. Today, we are happy to collaborate with Jillian Zolos to discuss their perinatal parent support program offered through the Carlington Community Health Center. A reminder, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on the CMNRP website in the coming weeks. We invite everyone to use the Q&A to ask questions during the webinar, and we will have time to answer them at the end of the webinar. Before we get started, I just want to recognize the land on which many of us are meeting today is from the traditional territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nations and the home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We recognize that Indigenous practice of health and well-being have been in place since time began and are maintained to this day. There is much work to be done to honor Indigenous women and families, pregnancies, journeys, and bring reconciliation to health care in this region. I invite all of us to move forward together with kindness, humility, and respect. Now, to get started, I would like to present Jillian Zolos. She is a dedicated health promoter and family support community worker at the Carlington Community Health Center with over 25 years of experience in perinatal health. Having attended over 1,000 births as a professional doula, Jillian is deeply committed to empowering parents through confidence building and anxiety reduction. Currently managing the Perinatal Parent Support Program, supported from the start, she serves new families throughout the Ontario Health East region, offering essential support from early pregnancy to 6 months postpartum. Jillian believes that timely and responsive upstream care is crucial for fostering safe and engaged parenting and optimizing family health downstream. The heartfelt feedback from parents who share how meaningful their engagement with the program has been fuels her passion for this work. Outside of her professional commitments, Jillian enjoys building her house, weightlifting, gardening, and finding balance and fulfillment in her personal projects. Now, without further ado, I invite Jillian to start her presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine, and thank you very much for having me today. And I'm excited to present. And before I do, I thought it would be nice to sort of get an idea of who I am presenting to. So if you'd be good enough to launch that first poll, that would be amazing. So I'm sort of having an idea. I'd like to sort of know, are you an obstetrician, a family physician, midwife, doula, nurse, social worker? Are you a different allied health provider, someone who works with pregnant folks? Would be really great if you could fill that out. And I see that for the most part, we're looking at social worker right at the very beginning of this talk. I'm sure as we go forward, there will be others, but I'm really happy to see that we have a social worker with us today. As I go through, you will also notice that there are going to be quotes, and these quotes that you see on the slides have been pulled directly out of our evaluation. So please take a minute to read them because, as Catherine mentioned before, the feedback from parents in this program are really what fuels those of us who are in it. It is incredibly empowering to hear the stories of the folks who are going through this program. So let's have a little bit of an overview. We are going to go through the program itself and define the pillars of this program. I'm going to share with you some evaluation highlights that the CHIO research team have put together for us. And I'm going to talk about how to access the program, how to refer to it, how to help promote it, and hopefully how to help expand it as well. In March of 2020, many supports available for expecting or new parents in Ottawa shut down or were severely limited, obviously, during the pandemic. In response, Carlington stepped up to fill that gap by developing an accessible online perinatal parent support strategy that provided continuity of care from the minute people knew they were pregnant until their infants were 6 months of age. The reason we capped it at 6 months of age is that there is a robust early on program throughout Ontario, and we were able to sort of hand off to folks to their nearest early on center at that 6 month period. And what we really felt was the gap was that very early parenting period from birth to about 6 months of age. On the right of your screen, you're going to notice what we call the postcard, which is something that each of you can download and put up in your client-facing spaces to help to promote this program. Now, since 2020, the program has grown into 5 synergistic modules, or what we refer to as pillars. Though participants can enter the program at any pillar, and obviously the earlier they come in, the more they're going to be able to benefit from the program, they will come in wherever they are, and they will move throughout these pillars based on their immediate needs. What we hope is that folks join us prenatally, and you can see by this particular image on your screen, different aspects of these pillars are sort of targeted to clients at different stages in their journey. A lot of the prenatal education is happening prenatally. Some of it is actually people are going backwards and picking it up even after they have delivered. But the vast majority, of course, are doing prenatal while they're still pregnant. But they're also doing the parenting sessions while they're still pregnant as well. Our goal is to have all of our 8 sort of didactic sessions underneath people's belts before they deliver, and they can continue to come after they've delivered up until 6 months. So postpartum, of course, there's one-on-one support, there's the parenting education, there's maternal, infant, and family mental health programming, and there is breastfeeding support that is offered from prenatal right through until postpartum. The prenatal education was really essential to me, especially, that we rethought it, that we didn't want to just do what had been done before. We decided that it would be more effective if we cohorted families based on where they were in their gestational age. So we have 5 sessions that target under 16 weeks, 16 to 24 weeks, 24 to 33 weeks, 33 weeks plus, and what I like to call the fine-tuning session, which is 36 weeks and counting. Those sessions repeat monthly. They're every single Wednesday night. So even if you've done a 16 to 24 session and I happen to be teaching it again, you can show up half an hour in just to ask questions, whatever your questions are, as long as they are prenatal. The parenting support consists of 8 sessions, which happen on a repeated cycle, and they are twice a week, once at noon to hopefully be able to get folks who are still working and while they are still pregnant, and another session at 2:30 so that anyone who has delivered or is not working can attend those. The breastfeeding support consists of the prenatal breastfeeding information sessions, which in and of itself is a standalone session, which I'll talk a bit more about later. Those happen twice a month. The question and answer with a lactation consultant, which is happening once a week. Actually, now it's happening twice a week. That's just been changed. And we have also added a high-risk road to success. We noticed that there were a lot of families who had high-risk pregnancies, some twins, having had previous breastfeeding, or breast reduction surgery, gestational diabetes, PCOS, things that can really make that breastfeeding journey quite bumpy. And so we specifically target those families with a high-risk road to success session, which is now being offered twice a month. There are virtual and in-person LC consults, which happen 4 to 6 times per week, and we have a drop-in that operates every Thursday as well. The mental health support really is focused throughout all pillars, but there are a few things that are specific, and one of them is the Managing Anxiety for New and Expectant Parents, or our MAP program, which is happening 2 to 3 times a year at the moment. Really needs to be happening more, but at the moment we just don't have the staffing to be able to make that happen. The partner-only sessions were started when a gap was identified and partners were saying that they were feeling very left out of the process, especially during COVID when they were not able to attend things like ultrasounds or prenatal visits. But even now, so we decided to target a partner-only session, no pregnant people allowed, and it was extremely well received. So we are now offering that session every other month. And of course, there is individual support and referral, which is ongoing. Anyone who has a question or a concern that they don't feel comfortable addressing in a group setting can absolutely reach out to myself or one of the other program facilitators and have a one-on-one session. Now, the program delivery is largely coordinated through Facebook private groups, with all the education sessions being offered through Zoom. But you can see here on the right of your screen, I'm able to list them as events in Facebook, so people can register there, they can get reminders there, and it takes a huge load off me from an administrative perspective and allows me to run more programming. The use of social media has facilitated rapid health literacy acquisition and knowledge dissemination, file sharing, targeted education, and easy access to timely information. All of the sessions happen through Zoom. So even if people do not have Facebook, they can access the sessions through our website or through email, but it's not quite as efficient. Because our Facebook groups can only hold a maximum of 500 people at any given time, I'm constantly taking people out once I know they've delivered if they're in the prenatal group, or once I know their babies are over 6 months in the postpartum group. And I know that based on when they're entering the group. It's also important to say that this is one-way information sharing. This is not the kind of Facebook group where people have comments with each other. The only time that happens is if I set it up. So if I set up a newcomer chat, are you new to Ottawa? Do you want to make new friends? I can set that up and then I can manage it. But most of the time it's happening one way because we didn't want to have privacy issues and we didn't want to have to deal with people being trolled. So really, this is an opportunity for me to share files, to share media, to share events, and to share ongoing information that is relevant within the community, such as the birth center just opening. That's one of the things I put out last week. So very much one-way communication through these Facebook groups. Now, I want to point out that even though there are only 500 at any given time in these groups, so far to date, Q1, 2, and 3 of 2024, we have had 730 unique entrants into each of those groups. And because we know that about 50% of participants in the program also include their partners in programming, that's about 1,100 unique parents so far this year in the pregnant group. And the the postpartum group has a similar number, but there are some people who only find us after they've delivered. So it does tend to be similar in numbers, but not necessarily completely unique between the two Facebook groups. The program delivery, the prenatal happens in the evening. The parenting sessions, as I mentioned earlier, happen during the day, but at noon and 2:30 to hopefully catch some folks who are still working. The partner sessions happen a little later in the evening, and they are all live. So it's virtual, but it's live, and there's a question and answer after every session. I do record the sessions, and I do make those recordings available if clients want to share with a partner who is unavailable at the time of the live session, or family members sometimes who they might need to update some knowledge. Those kinds of requests do happen fairly frequently. And I also make transcripts available for translation if requested. Now, partnerships have really been what has made this program strong and as successful as it has been. CMNRP has been instrumental in providing support throughout the years, not just recently as this has sort of coalesced, but in fact for the last decade or so as we have worked on all kinds of different programming for folks in our region. They've assisted with knowledge dissemination, letters of support for funding applications, supervising a master's student that I had a few years ago to create a provider handbook for our prenatal breastfeeding information sessions, which are a standalone session. And now that has resulted in fact, Leeds Lanark Grenville District Health Unit being able to now provide that PBIS portion, both virtually and in person in their health unit. Disseminating provider surveys to enable us to update our prenatal education. Most of the time, the prenatal sort of follows and tracks with the Ontario curriculum. However, we do send out these provider surveys every once in a while so that we can augment that learning with what providers are seeing as gaps in their clients' knowledge, especially around those specific cohorted gestational ages. CMNRP has sat on steering committees, especially the early days of the development of this program, and their support has really been instrumental to the success of the program. The Ottawa Hospital has also been incredibly helpful, providing information and client-facing materials to pregnant clients, both in clinic and on the website. And because their posters are up in the high-risk clinics, we do tend to have quite a large number of high-risk folks coming through this program. The Montfort Hospital has also promoted the program within and has partnered with us to help create the French language videos for the prenatal breastfeeding information session. And now they are providing the prenatal breastfeeding information session in French in the region as of very recently. So that is really exciting to see. Ottawa Public Health, of course, has promoted the program on its website and has also helped a lot with the French language translation for many of the components of the programming, especially the prenatal. Although we are not able to offer it in French at this time, we are ready to because we have all of the information translated. And recently, the CHIO Research Unit, who has helped provide the evaluation support that I'm going to be able to share that evaluation with you today. And at this point, we'll do another quick little poll so that I can get a sense of who it is you are working with. So do you tend to work with folks who are under 16 weeks pregnant, before 16 to 24 weeks pregnant? Whereabouts in their pregnancy do you usually see them? Or is it throughout their entire pregnancy? I'm really interested to know that. I'm just going to give everyone a couple of seconds to fill out that poll. All right, so most of you throughout the whole of pregnancy, but there are a couple of you who are really picking them up postpartum as well. All right, great. Thank you for that. And now I am going to share with you some of the results from our evaluation report. I have to stop for just a second and say thank you so much to Stephanie Sutherland and Dennis Newhook of the CHIO Research Institute for just putting so much effort and love into this project. It took a lot to get it to where it is today, and I'm really grateful because it means we have a very, very strong evaluation matrix going forward. So with that said, having a hard time forwarding for some reason. There we go. In 2023, Carleton received a SNAP grant from the Canadian Association of Community Health Centres. And that allowed us to engage the research unit from CHIO to develop a program of evaluation. We had been collecting data every single year since we started this project in 2020. But it was kind of all over the place. And we were collecting survey results from each of those 5 pillars. And it was beginning to be pretty taxing on the clients because I was asking them to fill in potentially 5 separate surveys. And we felt that there was a better way to do this. So this partnership resulted in a complete redesign of many of our evaluation strategies, including our matrix, our logic model, and the evaluation instruments, namely bringing it down to 1 survey that we can do twice a year. This means that our evaluation capacity has been increased, and it means that we'll be able to have really robust reporting going forward. So here is a picture of our beautiful new logic model. And this is something that was, built on what we already had in the program, but we really wanted to make sure that the short-term, midterm, and long-term outcomes were things that we could actually get meaningful information on and report on an annual basis. We went through the brand new survey combining all 5 of the pillars so that now we would not have to send out multiple surveys to parents. And we developed a completely new evaluation matrix, making sure that we could draw data from the survey tool, as well as registration data, as well as EMR data from our own center. So what did that mean? Well, we did our very first evaluation survey, which brought us in 71 participants, which is pretty good. We're aiming for about 200 surveys a year, and this was done in the middle of July, so I think we'll be on target to get 200 surveys for next year to draw data from. What we discovered is that the vast majority of the clients coming in are between 24 and 34 years of age. They are first-time parents, and they're planning on a hospital birth. And they are at pretty high risk of a cesarean birth. And again, that speaks to a lot of those clients learning about the program from posters that are up in the high-risk clinics at the Ottawa Hospital. 52% found us online. About 13% found us through their primary care provider. About 15% came word of mouth. Now that number is a little bit tricky to interpret because a lot of our clients share the program by sharing it with other Facebook groups or other forms of social media. So that number that says 52 found us online is actually quite a lot, it happening quite a bit because parents are sharing with their social media networks. And about 16% of clients saw us for the very first time in a poster at a hospital. About 35% of our clients identify as being ethnically diverse, and about 50% have had no other formal prenatal education. Some of the evaluation highlights are on your screen. Now, they broke down the evaluation into these sort of core components, into mental health, into systems navigation, knowledge acquisition, behavior change, program growth, and participant satisfaction. And there are a few things I would really like to draw your attention to. The first is about 53% of respondents received one-on-one support as well as the group training that they were receiving. And that's a very big number. And although it's something that it's a little bit hard to capture what that really means in terms of work effort and work product, let me tell you, there's an awful lot of messaging going on through Messenger. Not so much emailing, but a ton coming through Messenger. 96.8% of clients suggested that their anxiety and their confidence levels went up and their anxiety came down as a result of the prenatal sessions. And about 85% increased their confidence as a result of the parenting sessions. The knowledge acquisition was also really great. 88.7% respondents reported increased knowledge in responsive parenting. Now, this is something we spend a lot of time talking about in the parenting sessions and really trying to move folks towards that responsive parenting. And that behavior change piece is evident with nearly 75% of respondents saying that because of coming to these sessions, they implemented a more responsive parenting style. And we know that that is incredibly important for infant mental health and downstream family health. So that's a really important finding to draw your attention to. A little over 86% of respondents reported learning to hand express breast milk via this program, and that was something that we also spent quite a bit of time talking about. More on that in a few minutes. And of course, our participant satisfaction was very high, with 96% saying that they were likely to recommend or very likely to recommend the program to others, 98.4% responding that they were satisfied with the prenatal session, and 100% responding that they were satisfied with the parenting sessions. This program growth number that you see in the top right-hand side of your screen is a reflection of the fact that the Facebook groups are full all of the time. Really, what I want you to take away from that, though, is that number I spoke to earlier, which is about 1,100 to date in 2024 unique parents coming through this program. In 2024, we increased the partner-only sessions from 4 to 6 times a year. We increased the question and answer with a lactation consultant from 1 to 2 times per week. We added the high-risk breastfeeding session, and we increased our managing anxiety for new and expectant parents from 2 to 3 times a year. We also spent some time expanding our BFI messaging in response to client feedback. Now I'm going to pause here for a minute, because as many of you may know, Carleton is accredited with the World Health Organization Baby Friendly Initiative. And that means that we have specific things, specific criteria, especially around group programming, that is very important for us to follow. And what we noticed is that for the very few negative comments that we did get back from clients of this program, they almost all hovered around breastfeeding, and specifically around the messaging around exclusivity and duration, and they felt that that increased their anxiety, being that they were unable to breastfeed their infants. So we really wanted to go back and make sure that both in the prenatal programming and in the parenting programming, that we are very clear that we support all families, regardless of their method of feeding. Excuse me, and that we offer LC support for all parents, regardless of their method of feeding. So even families who are feeding formula are welcome to come and speak to the LC to talk about safe formula handling, to talk about paced feeding, to talk about anything that they specifically have questions around feeding formula to their infants. And we also made additional materials very available in our file transfer section that talked about informed decision-making, safe preparation and handling, etc. In terms of transportability, as I mentioned earlier, the Leeds-Lanark-Grenville District Health Unit has adopted that prenatal breastfeeding information session module, and the Montfort has also begun to teach that in French. So it's really lovely to see that it's expanding throughout the region. That program is able to be delivered in areas where they can be very, very specific about the resources that they have. So if I'm doing it, then people are coming in from Pembroke. I can't really be specific about the resources available in Pembroke. But if folks up the valley are doing it, they can be very specific about what resources are available to those breastfeeding families. And of course, it's wonderful that this is now available in French. The program reach has also really expanded. So at the moment, we can take in anyone who is all the way up to Renfrew County and District Health Unit, all the way to Eastern Ontario Health Unit, and down to the St. Lawrence as well. We stop at the sort of Kingston area, but at the moment we are bringing folks in from this entire region, and we are really spending 2025 making sure that those regions know about the program. We haven't been really great at tooting our own horn in the last year or so, purely for fear of just having too many people in the program and not enough facilitation to be able to handle it. But I really believe that we've sort of got our program to a place now where the delivery is something that really can expand and take more folks in. I would like to know where you are today. So if we could launch that poll, I'd like to know which health unit you are practicing in. Lovely to see Eastern Ontario Health Unit here. That's great. Thank you. Is there anyone else? I'm sure there are a few from Ottawa Public Health. All right. Nope, not on the call at the moment. So just Eastern Ontario Health Unit, and thank you for sharing that. All right, I apologize for the state of this slide. It is not my best slide that I've ever created, but I really did want to highlight that the virtual format of this programming really seems to work for people. So 94% of the participants indicated that the virtual format made it easier for them to attend, and 93% highlighted that it reduced transportation costs and parking issues, which was potentially a barrier to attendance. About 75% reduced anxiety by not having to go in person or not having to get fully dressed, as some people have discussed. And about 63% suggested that it helped their partner attend because it was a virtual format. A lot of folks mentioned that the privacy was lovely, that they didn't want to have to, fully get clothed or leave their house in the middle of February to come to a class. Many folks mentioned that they were attending from outside of the region. They were traveling to be with family. And in fact, we did have families who were attending from India and Prague and several countries in Africa while they were traveling with their young infants and still wanting to stay connected to the program. So that virtual format really did mean an awful lot to the folks who were attending. Some folks did mention, though, that there were some issues with the virtual format. Certainly, a lot of people attend on their phones, and sometimes the amount of information on slides was difficult for them to take in because they were looking at it on a very small screen. Sometimes the links were difficult to find, and because we have limited admin support, we really only update our links once a year. So every once in a while there is an issue with a broken link, and I might not catch it until I have a student who can go in and actually double check all of those. Some folks, of course, did attend not having had Facebook, and they found that signing up for the sessions or getting reminders for the sessions were more problematic because it wasn't something that was automated. And of course, some folks said that the timing just didn't work for them, especially folks that had other children at home. Between 4 and 8 was tend to be supper time and bedtime, and it was a difficult time for them to attend. Engagement, however, was really good, and 93% of the participants of the program engaged through Facebook. About 83% joined in that prenatal pillar, and that really made me happy. I would love it if it was 95%, but 83% is pretty good to get them in early so that they have access to all of the pillars of the program. About 76% looked at the posts that I put out. About 65% downloaded files. About 63% asked to look at recorded sessions, and 62% of those shared it with a partner or a family support person. 56% connected with the staff electronically, as I mentioned before, very frequently through Messenger, sometimes through WhatsApp, and rarely through email. I wanted to pull a few specific highlights right out of our evaluation. And so this one is kind of a nice slide because it has a really good look at what parents felt was important to them based on the education that was provided prenatally. And as you can see, pretty much right across the board, it was extremely well accepted, with most people responding very useful or useful. 96.8% said that they improved their confidence by coming to prenatal. 98.4% said they were satisfied. And what I'd like to draw your attention to here on this slide is what is highlighted in the bottom right-hand side. 42.2% of the clients who answered this survey had a cesarean birth, and 34% of those had an unplanned cesarean birth. And that's a pretty important number to remember, especially when I talk about our breastfeeding outcomes, because as we know historically through the literature, a cesarean birth is a risk factor for not experiencing positive breastfeeding outcomes. For parent education, I love this little quote. I really love this program. It's very unique in the community and very needed. The resources are informative and the staff is kind and respectful. These are the 8 sessions that we repeat on a loop: sleep, crying, attachment and bonding, baby wearing and baby safety, breastfeeding the older infant and moving on. So that is a warm handoff into other community supports for folks with infants over 6 months of age, developmentally appropriate play, starting solids, temperament, and routines. As you can see, sleep and crying are the #1 viewed sessions. Those are the ones that people really want to hear. That's why they're repeated the most frequently. Attachment and bonding and baby wearing are also close seconds. And what I found really interesting was that although breastfeeding the older infant had the fewest number of participants, it actually had the greatest level of satisfaction for what people had responded in terms of being very useful. Again, the parent education was very well received from the clients. 100% of folks said that their confidence increased, and 100% of folks said that they were satisfied with the sessions. And as I mentioned earlier, but it bears repeating, 74.6% reported implementing a more responsive parenting style. And during this parent education pillar, we spend a great deal of time talking about early brain architecture and really underscoring infant mental health, maternal mental health, family mental health. And I think that that's one of the reasons why this number is so high. The breastfeeding support, again, had a prenatal and a postpartum component. About 75% of clients in the program attended the prenatal breastfeeding information session. And I think, again, that is one of the reasons why our outcomes for breastfeeding, exclusivity and duration, are as good as they are. Because they're coming upstream, we are able to identify issues early, especially those high-risk families. They get the benefit of that one-on-one. They have access to the lactation consultant weekly and now 2 times a week through our group sessions, that Q&A with an LC, where our lactation consultant can also triage. So if she speaks to somebody with a problem that may not be appropriate to address in a group format, she can say, hey, hang back. I'm going to book you into a virtual appointment or a one-on-one appointment, or I'd like you to come into the drop-in on Thursday, and we can follow up pretty quickly. Interestingly, 55% of folks attended the Q&A before they had their babies. Excuse me, 55 in total, but 48.7 before they had their babies, and only about a third after they had their baby, and only about 18% both. I would like to see that both number go up, quite frankly, but I was really interested to see that there were more folks attending before they delivered than after. And I would like to be able to jump to the conclusion that that meant that things went better for them and they didn't need it as much, but I don't know that yet. That remains to be seen, and one of the things we'll be investigating in 2025. Again, the satisfaction was very high, with over 96% saying that they were overall satisfied with the prenatal breastfeeding information sessions, and about 91% indicated that the question and answer sessions met their needs. Interestingly, about 9% felt they did not. And I would be really interested to know whether those 9% attended before and not after, or after and not before, or they were part of those who went to both. I'm not sure yet. We do need to dig through that data a little bit more to get a better idea. The prenatal hand expression of colostrum was also very, very successful. When asked if participants knew how to hand express their breast milk, 93% of them indicated that yes, they did. And 80% indicated that they learned how to do it before they delivered their baby. And the majority of those learned about it in this program. So definitely the places where we are focusing on that are absolutely getting through. Interestingly, only about 55% actually practiced before they delivered. They knew about it, they had access to the videos, they had access to the support, but about 55% of them actually practiced. And certainly it did improve their confidence to meet their baby's feeding needs, with 50% suggesting that they felt much more confident, with a further 28% suggesting that they felt more confident. Now, this is a slide I'm particularly excited about, and it speaks to the breastfeeding exclusivity with the folks who are coming in through this program. Typically, in our region, we do see about 40% supplementation in hospital. And I think that probably did come along to match pretty much what I would have expected, with 53.5% indicating that their baby had nothing, and about 46.5% suggesting that they did receive supplementation in the first 48 hours after birth. But what's really interesting is that every single one of those who supplemented after birth supplemented either with hand-expressed milk only or a combination of hand expressed breast milk and formula, but not any one of them with just formula. When asked why they supplemented, the majority, 75.8%, indicated that it was suggested by a healthcare professional, while about 24% indicated that they chose themselves. Now, when it comes to the exclusivity, survey respondents were asked what they were feeding their babies at 6 weeks postpartum. And we have a measure at Carlington through BFI that's about 8 weeks postpartum. So we can sort of look at what those numbers are. And what we saw is that 62% at 6 weeks were exclusively breastfeeding, and a further 32.4% were using a mix of breast milk and formula. 94% of the folks coming through this program were feeding some breast milk at 6 weeks postpartum. And that number is much higher than any of the numbers that we've seen in the last 4 years when we're asking that question at 8 weeks. We're seeing sort of somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 50% feeding any breast milk. So to have it up in that 94% range was incredibly exciting for us to see, and I hope it's a trend that continues. Breastfeeding duration was also something that I was really interested to see, because a lot of the messaging in the program, of course, aligns with BFI, where we're talking about breastfeeding for 2 years and beyond. And there are a lot of questions that people have. What does it look like to breastfeed a baby past a year? What does it look like to breastfeed a toddler? And what we saw was that a very small number, 6.3%, stated that they planned to breastfeed their baby for up to 6 months. 6 to 12 months was a bigger number, about 36%. But 12 to 18 months, 18 to 24 months, and over 24 months was actually the majority. And that was really exciting to see. And it really speaks to the effort that we put in talking about when folks go back to work, it doesn't mean you have to stop breastfeeding your infant, and it can look different for different people. So I think a lot of folks coming in sort of thought, I have to go back to work at a year. That means I'm going to stop breastfeeding in a year. And very few people had even contemplated, oh, I can breastfeed before I leave in the morning and when I come home in the evening. And I think now they are starting to contemplate that more, as is evidenced by this slide. Under the mental health support, all participants in the prenatal sessions are screened at 24 to 33 weeks for anxiety and depression. They're screened with an EPDS. The parents coming to the partner sessions are screened with the partner version of that tool, and they are screened with a GAD-7. And those scoring above mild are encouraged to come to the Managing Anxiety for New and Expectant Parents program. And that program, up until July, when this evaluation was done, there had been 21 attendees in the program, with 100% indicating that they were overall satisfied with the programming. And again, it is our goal to open this up to closer to 100 folks in a year, but at the time, we just did not have the staffing available to increase the sessions. The partner sessions were also very well received, with 96% indicating that it was really helpful, about 100% indicating that they had gained knowledge, that they would be happy to tell other folks about it. And they responded very positively in that the sessions reduced their anxiety and built their confidence, with 89.5% respectively for each of those two criteria. We were very happy with that, and we have also asked those partners to give us feedback, to ask what they had hoped was in the session, what they would like to see going forward, and we've even had follow-up with them 6 weeks after their babies are born to make sure that what we're addressing prenatally is really meeting their needs in those early weeks of parenting. The program has had a clear impact on mental health in a very positive way. I could not possibly give you the number of comments that we've had over the last couple of years. Just from this one survey, we had 28 positive impacts and 2 negative ones. So I would like to highlight a couple. Particularly helpful during the crying session when baby was 8 weeks, and understanding that it was normal, which reduced our anxiety. So we were talking about the purple crying at that time. It definitely helped me trust myself more. I highly recommend the support sessions. They help boost my confidence and made me feel empowered to make the right decisions for me and my family. Feeling less alone, less anxiety, it decreased my depression. This was a particularly impactful statement. I experienced so much anxiety throughout my pregnancy and leading up to my birth because getting pregnant had been so difficult. I assumed I would struggle as much with many or most aspects of postpartum mental health, mood, breastfeeding. CHC prepared me well for what to expect and how to navigate the challenges. I ended up having an incredibly smooth first 2 weeks postpartum. Breastfeeding went well. I did not experience extreme moods, and I found myself with much more patience than I anticipated. And that is repeated often in the messages that we get, even as individuals in the program, not just on the evaluations. And of course, we did have those negative comments as well. Specifically, it has negatively impacted my mental health, and it turned out to be the opposite. And both of those comments were pulled from the area in breastfeeding. So it is really clear to us that as we are messaging and maintaining that BFI lens, that we really make sure all parents realize that we are here to support them regardless of that infant feeding method, and that they do have access to the LC even if they are not breastfeeding an infant. The individual and support and referral, again, there was quite a lot of access, and some folks had very high levels of acuity that required a lot of interaction. And then there were a great number of folks who just needed, a minor follow-up, 1 or 2 messages. 39.4% accessed the one-on-one support. About 53% received a referral. About 93% reported satisfaction with their service, and 2 individuals selected that they were not satisfied with their service. These quotes, again, just really speak to the responsivity of the staff. The individual session came a few days after our baby was born, and my husband and I were struggling with sleep deprivation. She provided almost immediate contact, talked us through a few key options for both my husband and myself, observed my hand expression technique, and made an important adjustment that allowed me to maximize colostrum output. And within 24 hours, we saw a large improvement with our sleep, and are so grateful to her for helping us through. That ability to respond very quickly through Messenger has really been a staple of this program, and something that is commented on very frequently by the participants. Overall program satisfaction, again, was really very high. There were a couple of folks who, again, spoke to that anxiety as being a problem coming through the program. And most of the time, those comments, and I believe there were actually only 2 folks, but those were very much targeted around that breastfeeding, which has certainly helped us make some changes in that messaging. Participant recommendations for improvement. Participants provided feedback related to the program improvements, and the bulk of that feedback pertained to disagreements with the program messaging around breastfeeding exclusivity and its impact on maternal anxiety when new mothers faced feeding challenges. Other recommendations pertain to the platform and access, so increased difficulty with those who didn't use Facebook, issues with Zoom links, scheduling. One participant recommended increasing our advertising, which hopefully we're going to do with this webinar, and with you being able to share with your, with your areas and your networks. And many survey respondents provided no recommendations or included compliments and expressions of gratitude to the facilitators. A couple of excerpts out of our discussion. It's well established that pregnancy and the transition to parenthood include significant biological and psychosocial changes that have been associated with increased anxiety symptoms and depressive symptoms. Given this, the Perinatal Parent Support Program ensures that importance of mental health is a pervasive theme throughout the programming. And most program participants who responded to the evaluation survey commented that both the prenatal and the parenting sessions provided much needed information that often translated into an increase in confidence and a decrease in anxiety. Data from the evaluation provide evidence that the program is excelling in its mandate to promote breastfeeding exclusivity. And I should just highlight that this is just one little excerpt, and and coming back to that 94% still feeding their babies some breast milk at 6 weeks. But it is by no means the only program outcome that was really successful. The evaluation data also uncovered numerous strengths of the perinatal parent support program, including all elements related to program delivery, content, relevance, and utility. But significant threats exist in the form of lack of ongoing or adequate funding, especially for admin support and especially in covering staff when they need to be off. Throughout all of the 5 program pillars, respondents commented that the program was often their fastest access to knowledge and support, and they commented that we were able to meet them where they were at. And that programmatic flexibility and attention to individual needs, especially through the one-on-one sessions, undoubtedly has played a large role in the year after year so many respondents indicate they would recommend the program to others. So next steps. We have and we will continue to make program changes based on client feedback, and we try and do it in real time. As soon as we get evaluations back, if there are things that we can address immediately, we address them immediately. We will prepare for another robust evaluation in 2025, which will have a full year of data. We'll be able to streamline our data collection now that we have this new evaluation matrix and a really good survey that covers all 5 pillars. We are looking for ongoing funding to support the program now that it is out of its pilot phase, and we're looking for opportunities and partnerships to expand the program reach, to strengthen the program, and to expand the pillars. We are in the process of conducting an obstetrical provider survey to augment the prenatal curriculum, and the goal will be to do that once every 3 to 4 years. And we're sending out a big one right now. So if you are an obstetrical care provider, a family physician, an obstetrician, a midwife, anyone who works with perinatal families, please look for that, because my wonderful diligent students are crazily sending it out over the next couple of weeks. So how can you access this program? How can you support it? And how can you promote it? You can request postcards and posters, and we will share those at the end of this session. You can link to the Facebook groups on your websites. You can contact me directly. You can watch our website at Carleton Community Health Center. You can post information where your pregnant clients will see it. And again, getting these clients into this program early is what gives them the most opportunity to benefit from all of the pillars. And if you are outside of the Ottawa region and you are interested in offering a prenatal breastfeeding information support, which is targeted to your local resources, please reach out to me, because we have that as an individual package and we are willing to share it with you essentially for free. There's a minor administrative cost, but essentially we will give you everything that you need to be able to deliver this in your own area, and you can benefit from all of the amazing work that has gone into putting that together as its own little encapsulated program. And of course, if you happen to be a funder and you would like to fund this amazing upstream opportunity to radically change downstream family health, I would love to hear from you. And on that note, I will put up our sort of 5-pillar screen so that you can have a quick look at it again, and I am happy to answer any questions that there may be.
Thank you so much, Jillian, for such a great presentation. I love hearing you speak. You're so compassionate. You're so passionate about the work that you do, but I just am amazed about all the work that you are offering these families, not only for a prenatal, segment, but throughout all of their stay. So the mental health, the parenting, the breastfeeding, and out through even 6 months of age with their little baby. So I appreciate you so much, and I thank you for your presentation. I did give a shout out to the participants just to see if they had any questions. I don't see any of them on the Q&A right now. Please know that if you think of a question later on, you may reach out to Jillian. You have her email there, and we may share the email directly in the chat box if that is more helpful for you. The last thing we wanted to mention was the next slide, and I'm not sure if you still wanted to share it. Jillian, but we can only share the link as well. It was simply a slide for a survey that we wanted to ask those who are present if they are willing to answer it. So it just gives a bit of more information about Jillian, about what are the topics that you feel can be added in terms of the prenatal education session. So is there any specific topics mostly for the under 16 weeks pregnancy, in what week category, topics you feel that would be added? And they're always updating their content and reflecting about current evidence and current things happening, right? So I think that was the goal, Jillian, but maybe you want to speak to it a little bit more before we just end off here.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Actually, I think that's the most important piece, is that this is living, it's ongoing. We change it and adapt it now that the new RSV information is out, for example. We now have a slide in the prenatal to discuss RSV so that we can tell people, provide them with information so that they can make informed decisions. We are always changing. But this ability to request information from care providers, a lot of it is stuff that's already in the curriculum. And of course, a lot of folks who are going to be adding their comments won't know what's in the curriculum, so they won't know if it's already there. But it's an opportunity for me to look through and say, oh, you know what? That's not there. Or if they're telling me that this particular thing is coming up repeatedly, that clients have more information or want more information, then I can make sure that it makes it in at the place where it's the most important. And RSV is one example. Cord blood donation is another. So we do talk about donation of cord blood and when it can happen, and through the Ottawa Hospital. So any folks who are delivering at the general campus can access that. So those kinds of sort of nuanced things, I'm very, very happy to add in, wherever they are going to be most efficient.
I'm so happy for you, Jillian. Thank you so much. It's funny how sometimes we learn that there are subjects that we might not think of, or that we don't think come that often in terms of questions for parents, but that gives us the opportunity just to add them in and make sure that they have all the information that they need.
Absolutely.
So thank you again, Jillian. With that said, we'll make sure that the recording are available within the next few weeks so that people can go back through the recording and make sure that they have all the resources and poster if they want to share the information with everyone. So thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. And thank you so much for, your continued support at SAME NRP.
Have a great day.
You too.